Namaskar. Sati Pratha, the truth or a manufactured construct. Several Indian queens ruled their kingdoms after the death of their husbands. Rani Durgavati, Keladi Chennamma, Ahilyabai Holkar, just to name a few. All led their kingdoms and defended them against invaders. If Sati was such a widespread Pratha, how come these queens ruled and protected their kingdoms after the death of their husbands? And this was in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. Or in the Ramayana, why did King Dasharath's wife not immolate themselves on his funeral pyre? Why in Mahabharata did Kunti not immolate, but Madri did? And that too in the face of vehement opposition by the king's court. She believed that she was responsible for the death of her husband and stuck to her decision. She wasn't forced because Sati was not a practice. It was not a Pratha. Once we rid ourselves of the propaganda and look at our history and ancient texts with an open mind, once we start digging into the topic, we come across enough data to realize that Sati was not a Pratha. We may find a few random cases here and there, but that's it. Just as you may find many cases of suicide due to, say, financial reasons, but won't classify it as a Pratha, the classification of Sati as a Pratha has to be seen as an exercise in malice. If you dig further, you realize that there was actually a mandate to prevent self-immolation in our ancient texts. The elders and family members, like brothers, cousins, sons, were mandated to give the widow assurance that she would not suffer because of the loss of her husband. They were mandated to demonstrate and quantify how they would take care of her so that she would not feel the need to burn herself on her husband's funeral pyre out of desperation. Like, we will provide for you these many new clothes every year. We promise you will never go hungry. You will be an important member of the family, and so on. After several rounds of such attempts to dissuade her, if she still remained adamant about doing it, only then was she allowed to do it. It is very clear that the practice was not taken lightly or allowed without strong deterrence. Even after the pyre was ready to be lit, there would be a last-ditch attempt to stop her. You would be justified in asking me a question at this point. If what I am saying is the truth, why would someone maliciously create a false narrative like this? What would anyone have to gain out of telling a lie like this? Good question. Have you heard of the term atrocity literature? It was popularized by the British missionaries. There was actually a project Sati by the missionaries who came during the occupation of India by the British. We must actually credit the ingenuity of the missionaries and Raja Ram Mohan Roy. They succeeded in creating a narrative that is patently false and still endures after 75 years of independence. For the East India Company during the mid-1700s and 1800s, trading was the only aim. All they wanted was the freedom to trade and loot India to the maximum. But credit where it is due. Whenever a missionary priest landed on our shores, he was promptly sent back by the next ship. They did not want anything to disrupt their trade. The missionaries were, however, obsessed with their goal to Christianize the whole world. That was the beginning of their project to record what they perceived as the ills of the Hindu society. It was their way of creating a justification of their program of converting the local population. They later presented highly inflated data of this to the British Parliament and got a permission to civilize the unwashed Hindu natives. Did they do it alone? No. They found a willing ally in Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who was completely dazzled by the Christian traditions of the ruling British class in Bengal. Ram Mohan Roy was a Brahmin and a landlord, and he was acceptable to the natives, and therefore the perfect candidate for their purpose. The missionaries used Roy's pretentious zeal to reform Hindu society and fed his hunger for fame as a reformer to create what we today call the atrocity literature. Atrocity literature is a body of work, usually a series of anecdotal stories that are narrated as though they are a rampant practice. The aim is to make a culture or a country look bad. There might be only, say, 10 incidents in a population of 1,000,000. But those 10 stories are repeated again and again and again to create an impression that it is not 10, but 10,000 stories. Remember, in the first part of this, we spoke about how rumors are spread. The same tactic of a friend told a friend told a friend, and that person told me. That tactic was used to create atrocity literature about Sati. I tried to find out how Ram Mohan Roy collected his data on Sati instances. What I encountered was circular references. The British collected and published Sati incidents. Roy used this to generate part of his data, then gave it to the British to incite them to interfere. All the while, the missionaries stayed in the background, waiting for the door to confirmation to be pushed open by Ram Mohan Roy. And the question is, why did he do it? Let us try and find out. But for that, you have to watch the next part of this video. Namaskar.